and honey is sugar. I mean, it will still. But the great thing is it does have bits of propolis and other things in there that will boost the immune system. So I think it's safer. But I would interject that even eating a lot of fruit and simple sugars, and I think the high glycemic. I mean, high glycemic just means a high amount of sugar, really. So yeah, even having like a huge amount of fruit intake when you're getting sick, you know, like the whole orange juice when getting sick. Right. Not only is orange juice mucus producing, but it's very, very sugary. So don't do the orange juice. So I don't know where you're at with that.
Well, I mean, I eat a lot of fresh fruit, fresh locally grown fruit all the way through winter, and I feel very comfortable with that.
But would you eat a huge fruit salad in the midst of getting influenza?
No, typically that's not available in the winter.
Right, true.
So it's not an issue for me.
Starve.
Yeah. All right. So basically, what typically happens? Let's run through the typical stages of what we basically have is in comes a fever. Do you want to talk briefly to the topic of why fevers are great things?
Sure. So fevers, probably as most of you know, are fabulous. They're there to kill the virus when we get them. And influenza actually dies. It's temperature sensitive. So it dies around 98 to 99 degrees. So when you get a fever, don't take aspirin. I wouldn't take aspirin. I would say I'm not a doctor. I can't actually tell you all to do that. But if I were to get a fever, the last thing I would do is do any sort of fever suppressors. Unless, of course,
even if it's really, really high, I mean, like 104, how high does it get?
You know, I've had 105 fever as an adult, and if it got any, you know, it was the low 105, and if it got any higher, I would have suppressed it. Yeah. But, you know, one can go, you know, you can be an adult and have 103, you know, low 104 and really be fine. Yeah. There's a lot, and rarely do people go higher than that.
What did you have when you had 105, do you think?
I think I probably had meningitis, but I never went to the doctors, and I just worked with herbs and, yeah.
I was speaking to a nursing friend. She works in ER at one of our local hospitals. I was saying, why are doctors recommending that people take aspirin? She said, well, people are just not comfortable with being sick. We've forgotten how to be sick. We've forgotten how to convalesce. We've forgotten how to nurse. And people want to be comfortable. Recent mainstream medical research show that use of aspirin and then NSAIDs, acetaminophen, it's the same thing as paracetamol, they quote, a striking prolongation of influenza infection, or highly significant increase in virus production, prolonging the infection, use of aspirin. So you reduce the fever, but significantly extend the severity, duration, and infectiousness of influenza by taking these things. Now, aspirins are what are currently being recommended by the Center for Disease Control, or many other mainstream medical groups. I'm not entirely sure why.
They're not recommending vitamin D?
They strongly recommend, well, I mean, as a complementary, it's not yet being recommended by the CDC, although we're seeing a lot of, we're seeing immediate interest in vitamin D.
Question about vitamin D. What form of vitamin D would you recommend? Or is there a type of vitamin D that's easier to uptake?
So you want to do D3, and a liquid is good. Okay. And that, I haven't used that particular one, but yeah, you definitely want to do D3.
Did you take it with anything?
You don't need to take it with anything, no.
So basically what we see typically with the fever coming is that antibody production rises about 20-fold. Muscle aches, the muscle aches that you get is basically muscle tissue breaking down produce the amino acids that are used to create the immune system components, like white blood cells and such like, and the ability of your body to restore damaged tissue. Typically, what happens at first is you have chills. That's basically the hypothalamus of the body setting your temperature point high. So everything sort of closes in to raise the body temperature, and up it comes. Stage 1, we would call this in terms of influenza. Then essentially the sort of set point generally gets reached around about 102 to 104 degrees. A good working fever is what is that. Gut motility decreases. You notice very quickly the loss of appetite with influenza. Honor it, go with it. You might have a neurotic tendency to keep eating, but if you really tune into what your body's saying, it's saying fast. So fast. You're putting food in. Basically what you're doing, we believe, is pulling resources away from your body's ability to fight infection into digestion.
And with that decrease in motility, you're really not able to digest that food anyways. So when you have a fever, just stop eating. Drink water and do your herbs.
What about chicken broth?
Cut it out. Cut it out. Do it when that fever's gone. Go for the broth. But while you have a fever, because that's that's that rich protein and fat. So you don't want to be putting that in.
No, it's another shibboleth shattered.
Yeah.
Someone makes you chicken soup.
That's for cold.
Yeah, put it in the fridge, and once that fever breaks, yeah.
Once you get back down to 99, it can be a real challenge holding off until that point, but you shouldn't need to wait too long. And once that set point gets low back to normal, then the temperature will tend to start. That's, I suppose, what we might call stage 3. And there might be a dance between stage 2 and stage 3 for a few days. And then we fall into a recovery period. And the general sense is we want a recovery period as long as the extent of the flu you'd had. One of the interesting stories that Paul Bergman had to relate in terms of dealing with a flu outbreak in his practice some years ago was that he had, I think it was 4 or 5 patients come to him with a flu. Okay? All those patients who decided to go back to work after day 4 and feeling better ended up in hospital with pneumonia. All the ones who didn't go back to work were fine. Research into survivability of patients in the 1918 pandemic showed that those who went to bed earliest stayed in bed longest and got the best care of the ones who didn't. Getting out of bed too early is dangerous. Stay there if you can.
I would say stay there even an extra day beyond when you think you should get up. Like, this is potentially dangerous stuff, and so I know that it's hard, and some of us, like, I don't have health insurance. Every day of work that I miss is really threat to my ability to feed myself, but or sick pay or anything like that. But still, when it comes to this, just call in or call the patients, call the clients. And it also, staying home also encourages other people to do that when they get sick. It's really important to do, so.